who's next? Are they going to come after me next? So it's becoming a lot easier for different countries to justify breaking away from these rules that we've had in the past where you could only buy oil with dollars, and most international trade had to take place in dollars, and your central bank reserves had to be mostly in dollars. And none of that's true anymore. A number of really dramatic things happening right now. Let me stop there and then we'll talk about the dramatic things as we go along.
Okay, well, look, I think both you and I had sort of pulled data in advance of this conversation of some of the announcements that have been made recently, just to give people a sense of, which specific countries are involved and what decisions they're taking here. I guess, do you want to start with your list first? Do you want to go through mine? I don't know if you still have yours in front of you, given the scramble that we had before, but...
Yeah, I printed it out. I've got it right here because there's so many names here that you can't really keep all of this in memory, just because so many countries have all of a sudden decided to either join the BRICS coalition or are talking about it or are cutting other trade deals on the side.
All right.
And so, first of all,
maybe I'm early. It's 3 o'clock. Hold up, Paul, Philip. Oh, you're early, Alex. Yeah, you're the second one. You're not first. Which banks will fall this Friday? It's an interesting question. System's in a lot of trouble. It's in a lot of trouble. Hey, William Wallace. I wonder if you really are William Wallace. Wasn't he a hero? That's interesting. Which banks will fail? They talk about Charles Schwab, and these bonds. They call them cocoa bonds. These instruments that were put in place to help when the crisis happened the last time to bring equity to banks. They are causing my computer. Every girl's crazy for a sharp-dressed man. Yeah. After they're done with the other guys. Yeah, I saw GTII. We're fighting for freedom. Freedom. Didn't he say hold? 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 Or was that the Gladiator? They both very similar movie scenes. When I first, the one with Liam Neeson, that one broke my heart when I first saw it. But let me get, you just said GTII, so I'm trying to find the stupid quote. Nothing ever works. Yeah, 184. Well, that's it, Lion. You see, well, you know more than I do, probably. But, yeah, they're just playing that when you got puts and calls, they're just stripping the premiums. Oh, my gosh. Tornadoes? I know it's fringe thinking and it's conspiracy thinking, but there's a lot of energy in the atmosphere, and it may not be from climate change, although I happen to think that we've put a lot of carbon up there. It may be from the radiation in the atmosphere from Fukushima, which is, I know that's but there's a lot of energy in the atmosphere, and it is frightening. What you need to have Washington understand the pain is have one of those hit here. I hope it never does. And I don't think it would. Anyway, GTII is $1.84 and 183 to 185. I believe that the 1-800 law firm is going to be delayed because of the audit. That's just my impression. It's not a surprise, but I think that'll be a disappointment to you all and to maybe the shorts will love it. But that's what I think, because tomorrow's the 1st and we haven't heard anything. So you just, your mind has to tell you what your heart doesn't want to hear. I'm trying to do one thing while I'm talking to you, which is sign in. Yeah, Arkansas. Oh, that's terrible. I know Jack Wolf being used to being. Yeah, I'd like to see Arca's video. I don't think it's going to go down, by the way. At some point, even disappointments won't keep the stock down. It's a funny dynamic that happens. There's a change in dynamics almost that occurs, and all of a sudden, even the disappointment of having to wait maybe another I don't know, a month maybe, I don't know what. Even that disappointment won't cause the stock to go down. It's inevitable. These guys everything they're doing are signs of desperation, and well, Mark Dinger, I'm not sure CRTD is squeezing, but it is going up, and I think it's a combination. Well, let me see. This thing is so slow. So slow. Anyway, it's frustrating. I can't get the quote now. This is just taking too long. But anyway, earlier it was 17 cents. I have no idea what it is now as I'm talking to you. But the point I'm trying to make about CRTD is I think Jeremy let the washout of all the people that were getting upset happen, and now he's put out at least 2, if maybe even 3, if you count the idea of focusing on his core business. 3 pieces of really good news, and it's clear that he's going to fight the short. So I think that's why it's starting to go back up. Who's this? This is the definition of sanity. Do the same thing and expect a different outcome. What? Oh, it's at 18 cents. I don't know what you're referring to. I do notice that human beings often do the same thing over and over again, including when bashers bash and shorters short. I do notice that. So let me get the quote. Yeah, it's really good. It's 18 cents. So that looks like a big move. Um, yeah, I can't. It's so slow. Bid 17, ask 18. A lot of size. The volume is 694,000, and they did put out today that FINRA did approve the symbol change. Let me read that story. Of course, it's going to take a moment to come up. Well, Dan M., I don't personally think a new CUSIP does anything. When those guys pushed that concept as it related to COSM, it didn't do anything, and I knew it wouldn't. I tried to say it as diplomatically as I could. But what matters is Jeremy knows how to do corporate actions, and I'll read it. This is taking forever, so I just have to talk as if I know what I'm talking about. Then I'll read it. But I think if Jeremy does the corporate action in such a way that in order to qualify for the change in the CUSIP number, you have to present real shares, well, that's a different ballgame. And that's not what Cosmo did. Cosmo just allowed the stock to run up and then, took money from the shorts. I wouldn't even ever remember it, except that it really took money from you guys, and it really interrupted anyway. Let me just get off of that. All right, so this came out today at noon. Created has received approval from FINRA for a symbol change for its common stock. Okay, so we know the symbol is vocal. Is it really going to have a dollar sign in this? No, he's just doing that for Twitter. The company believes blah blah. We follow through on what we say. That's good. That's a characteristic of building trust and good leadership. Changing the symbol to vocal and changing the name of the company to vocal is part of a larger effort to split the company into 3 distinct publicly traded businesses. That's a big deal. That is a big deal. With 3 distinct CUSIPs. That's a big deal. These steps generate significant corporate actions. Created's legacy media archive, OG Collection Inc., is set to file an S1 in accordance with plans to spin it off as a special dividend to Vocal shareholders. The OG Collection will be assigned its own independent CUSIP and ticker symbol. Now that's a little bit contradictory to having it trade on Upstream exclusively, but maybe he can do both, or maybe he's changed his be OGCL collection. The next step is to spin off Created Ventures, which houses the company's growing direct-to-consumer product business, including, for them, the flagship product Basis, a hydration mix that is currently the company's best seller with a 2 to 3 times return on ad spend. We plan on listing Created Ventures on the T0 platform. Not upstream. And remember, that's something Lou's been talking. You have to give Lou credit for that. He's been talking about T0 for a long time. But I know that we were talking about it for a long time too. So maybe T0 is the way. Very interesting. Possibly CVEN would be the symbol, and the distribution would happen at a later date. Once these spin-offs are what's happened, maybe there's some, I'll have to find out. There might be something going on with upstream. Once these spin-offs are completed, the plan is to list OGCL on T0 and similarly to list CVEN on upstream. Okay. The final result will leave all tech assets related to Created's flagship product, Vocal, in Vocal, with an expected change in CUSIP at the time of the company's planned uplist. I hope it goes higher than the NASDAQ. Look what the NASDAQ did to Finger. Look what they've done to my song, Ma. Look what they've done to my song. It was the only thing I could do half right, and now it's come out all wrong, Ma. All right, an action which would combat short sellers and increase, that's really good. It is important to note that while changing the company's name or symbol does not necessarily require a new CUSIP, the decision to change the CUSIP is typically made by the company as transfer agent on, whatever. Okay, that's great news. That's great news. Counselor Diamond Hands. GTII with a quadruple bottom. Strong support at 182, 188. Kidding. That's great. 182, 188. Let me see where it's trading. Unfortunately, right at the moment, I'm on CRTD. Let me switch to... Yeah, I think we're getting close, Counselor. I think we're getting very close to... all right, 183 to 184. The news yesterday, you all know, they re-emphasized the April 15th distribution for the restricted shares, and they emphasized they are not going to, there's absolutely no plans to. Okay, what's the great news, Nick? I was responding to CRTD's news. So frustrating. All right. Lion. And you know what? That means they're getting fried. I think, if you look at the chart I got to move to a different page, but if you look at the chart of GTII, criminals have tried to sell downward for 3 months, basically. All of it is underwater. So they're really in trouble. I didn't hurt my knee. Oh, did it hurt before? Yeah, it was probably just from sitting so long. My knee's all right. I know Steve Mertz. It's nothing personal. It's just business. Except in the Godfather, that's taking someone's life. I remember a boss of mine switched me from a corner office to a shitty office. I was a lot younger. Oh man, things take a while in things take a while in La La Land. Hey, Jenny L. Hey, reader. Wow, April looks like a wonderful month and debt-free. Chris, that is huge. Debt-free changes your life. You just bought another 300 shares. I think that's terrific, Nick. I think that's absolutely terrific. Senior Butts McGee, it's Elon Changement Chanson Mal on change ma chanson. C'est la seule chose que je pense. Pousse. I'm doing terribly. Faire ce. I have no idea. The more things change, the more they say the same. You know, I studied French. I just have no skill. None. It's like those French. Hey, Pete. I didn't hear any updates on the lawsuits. Well, we're stuck at my. Let me go see if the chart came up. I don't think 184 is particularly devastating, particularly since it's such low volume. And I don't think charts really are going to matter once the FBI comes knocking on hopefully it's Kurt Kramer's door, but it might just be someone in the chain, someone else in the chain that sold those shares. Oh yeah, 184 is nothing, guys. It's the chart looks incredible. It's really good. 184 is right above where the 50-day is now crossing the 200-day moving average. We've just come down to test what used to be resistance, now becomes support. And it's totally normal, totally normal. It is not breaking any trend lines. It's not breaking any, in my judgment, any support. It's really low volume. And I want to say Golden Cross. I don't know, something. Technicians have some sort of name for it. But when the 50-day moving average crosses to the upside, the 200-day moving average, it is a hugely positive sign. Or it's just one indicator, but it's really positive. And the other thing, that if you listen to one of Avid's videos, I think a week ago or so, he was counting out the chart. Now he uses a much more detailed chart that he's obviously paying for. It's beautiful. At stockcharts.com, stockcharts.com. And he pointed out that every time we're running up, we're getting 1 or 2 or 3 days down. Then we go back up. Well, guess what? This is the third day down. We had a really nice run up. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a little red. 5, 6, 7. We kind of rolled over, and now we're having 3 days down, and it's all counterfeit. So I personally think this is going to hold. And one of these days, when there's bad news, you're going to wake up and the stock's suddenly at 5, 6, 7. You go, what's the news? There won't be any news other than the buy-in has started. So I think it's a good chart. Oh, hell's bells. I forgot. Let me look at hell's bells. Let me see the chart on hell's bells. I had a friend in the UK. She was quite she could doll up nicely. But anyway, her name was Helen, and they called her Hell's Bells. It's taking a while to update. Oh, it's now MCOM. I see. So, oh, you lost money. Well, it cost me a lot of money on Hell's Bells too. MCOM. Quite a bit. London is quite expensive. That's called micromobility. There's no chart. No chart. So it's hard for me to give you. Oh, they did a reverse split? Do you guys understand that the whole system from start to finish is set up so these criminals and Wall Street can just take money out? It's like the Fed produces money, we send the jobs overseas, and here we're in the business of financial churning, and they just churn the money their way. It's really a bad setup for the struggling young American working family. $50-1 reverse split. Oh, and Derek, I have no idea. Well, let me see. I don't think I have any idea. Yeah, I couldn't get a chart on HLBZ, so I don't know what they were trying to accomplish with the reverse split, but the stock's probably already headed on the way back down. Ali. Yeah, criminals and friends of criminals and people that donate to politics. No one wants to work anymore, reader. The politicians just want someone to write a big check. The brokers, because they went to a good school and they work in a firm that's, I don't know, called Goldman Sachs, one of them. They don't want to get on the phone and talk to clients. There's got to be an angle for everything. And that's really the sign of the end of it all. Oh, Karak. I feel bad for all the Hells Bells MCM. It's 360. What? So if it's a 50 for one split at 360, that's got to be some serious damage. $3.60 divided by 50. 7 cents? Oh, I've heard of stocks trading lower, 7 cents, but what did it start? Where did it start? What was the last concert I went to? I went to a jazz club. I assume you, and then my friend knew who it was. I don't. Last concert I went to, because of all this COVID stuff. That's interesting. It might have been in London. No, I know what it was. I went to see Samantha Fish. I went to see Samantha Fish in Virginia at the State Theater. Samantha Fish. Now at 32. God. You were in it at 20 cents. So, Steve, you got in at 20 cents. Is it worth 7 cents now? I don't know. CLNV, it's a good product. They did a financing that I tried to study, and that I saw that as a negative, or a risk anyway, a risk. But Avid has turned positive on it again. That was running. That went up to 12 or 13, and then it collapsed on the financing. But I love the mission of the company. You know what happens with nice guys. All right, so Steve Mertz share at the split. So now you're at 360. Yeah, it's the same. I was saying it's 7 cents versus 20. It's basically you lost 2/3 of your money. You went from 200,000 shares down to 4. Oh my gosh. Derek, that's... I think, without knowing anything about the specific company, I think selling is probably the right thing to do, because once they reverse split it, and by I'm talking about the company, but they're getting advice for one of these smiling faces firms, comforting, oh, we're going to help you. Behind that firm are a bunch of rotten-ass criminals, and they're just going to start selling the stock back down. And whatever problem was trying to be solved by reverse splitting, they're going to be back in it all over again. And who? Let me just see this guy again. You had 200,000 shares. It's down to 4. So just assume, Derek, just as an illustration, let's say that the shares you bought were sold to you by a short. And let's just say there was no side deals. It's just a traditional requirement, which is $2.50 a share. So on 200,000 shares, the typical short would have to put $1 million up from the sale, and maybe additional money, have to put $1 million up on margin. The short, the criminals. So just on the other side of your position would be an account with $1 million tied up. They can't access it until they either cover their short, or look what the company did. 200,000 shares. 250 is the normal requirement that has to be maintained in the lock box. You have to leave it with the brokerage firm until you deliver your shares. Well, by doing the reverse split, they turned 200,000 shares, and I'm just using that one little microcosm, into 4,000. And now 4,000 times $2.50. That's pretty embarrassing, actually. It's like $10,000, right? They've gone from having to have $1 million left in the account to secure their position to 10,000. Guess what happens to all that cash? They take it out and they go buy their wives' rings and it's just the theft. It's on a scale that is just unbelievable. And then Gary Gensler talks about how you're taking risks in cryptocurrency. There's no real risk reward in the over-the-counter markets. You're just going to lose over and over and over and over again. It's all gimmickry. I don't know if I explained that well enough, but reverse splits allow criminal shorts to cash out. They allows them to cash out, and guess what they do? They keep selling. Let me see this. Oh, okay. Jennifer, okay, the 10K is out for Nextbridge. Talks about how company came to be fishy, made it look like Madame Matos was trading it. All right, I can look that up. That's a little frustrating. Okay. That's it. Sorry, I told you I had to do something online, and I'm almost done. I know it's rude. Just take a picture of that. Okay. Okay. All right, it's done. Hey, First Time Jimmy. It's got to be a song named First Time Jimmy. Am I in China? Why, is the video that bad? Am I in China? Let me go to the beginning, back to the top, and we're gonna see you again. Yes. Hey, Barry, what do I know about QFS? JD Nettles, off the top of my head, I don't know what it is, but it was Braveheart, Lena, and amen. Braveheart. I blame Citadel for the tornadoes. And it could be the sun, Jeff Bridges. Yeah, that could be it too. Arca's video. Maybe we can listen to it. Matthew Parker. I couldn't agree with you more. I promised myself after yesterday I've got to make sure I don't get into politics at all, or very little. But to bomb the world's breadbasket with depleted uranium bombs it's almost it is. It's a nuclear war. I do have a mouse for my computer, a dog for my house. All I need is a love for my heart. You have a sneaky feeling, Barry, that Mullen's going up. Maybe there's a contract. DC777, I like your numbers. $8 to $10. I like those numbers. I think that's really could be when there's trouble. Hey, Dan M., thank you very much. The CRTD, Jeremy says it's squeezing. Well, Jeremy knows, Martin Giroux, I think it's an interesting approach. We can agree on that. End of the first quarter, anything on MMTLP? Stony. And there's the insanity quote. Lion's got a quote for me. Does it involve not letting the door hit me on the way out? Oh, Jeremy said hedge fund shorting is in trouble at 20 cents. See, the one thing about Jeremy is he knows how the back office works. Yeah, I sound a little bit better. That's great. Thank you for even noticing that I didn't. I don't know. I had my x-ray done before. I really did. The nurse had to take it. Very good, Lion. Well, Mark Dingard, stepping away from the GTII merger doesn't change the value proposition of GTII, in my opinion. Yeah, DLYT. Somebody told me about that one, and it might be what's his Avid. There's so many symbols. Is GTI getting pounded now? Who is saying that? I always feel like somebody's watching. I don't think that's pounded. Oh wow, that's getting pounded. I don't know who said that. The volume today is 868,000. I forgot to look when I came on, but it's incrementally not very much volume, and it's down 6 cents. That's pounded. I guess. I don't know. Everybody has a different definition of pounded. I'd say it's just pulled back on manipulation from criminals selling counterfeit shares. I mean, you call that pounded? You got 200 shares to sell, 1,100, it's not pounded. But let me fun when it's down. I understand that. But you gotta have a pause for the cause. If it went straight up, it would topple. It'd be like building a skyscraper on one set of iron bars all the way up to the 100th floor. You need to build in the support all around, and you got to go in and it's got to have a wide base so that you can go up to the top. And that's what these little pauses for the cause do. They get out some of the weekends, they get new money in, and it starts building the base and it runs. It's all healthy. I don't think that's being pounded. But anyway, we can all have a different opinion of pounded. Here it is. At 182, when I first started talking to you guys, it was 184, and now you came on and you're saying it's getting pounded. It's down to 182. The bid is 182. The ask is 184. I don't have any recollection what the bid was, but I just respectfully have to disagree with you. I don't see any pounding going on there. Today's trading has all been in a very... wanted to say there was pounding, but I don't know who I'm talking to because the scroll went so quickly. But when the criminals sell, they're not pounding. They've set up signals. Criminal 1 just makes up shares out of thin air. Hey, I think I'll sell 50,000 shares today and see what happens. Just makes it up. They're counterfeit. That criminal drives it down. The second criminal buys it from him, in the simplest example, at the low. So they can take that money out. That's a profit. The second criminal is now sitting exposed, but it's in an LLC. He can walk away from it. But they actually have a team. They do 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 of these guys, and they're moving it around. And all that's going on today on Friday, in my judgment, is the criminal loot. And they're trying to keep the stock down. There's obviously always someone exposed. If you do a daisy change of selling fake shares and another LLC comes in and sells more fake shares by buying that position, it's someone's going to be exposed. And so they have to try to keep it dampened. I would hardly call that pounded, but that is the nature of this investment. The reason we're in this investment is we perceive that there is going to be a short squeeze. What set up the short squeeze is the counterfeiting of shares, which is probably close to 350 million by now. Call it 300 million. It might only be 100 million. Counterfeited shares, but it's a trap short. There's news coming. The FBI is after the short. The FINRA and DTCC are after the one prime broker that's crooked, and they're going to be out of business. West Christian is going in looking for the data. So they're not going to be standing long, but that's the theory. The 100 million shares that do not exist, and they have to be all bought back. Well, if you want to call the fact that the criminals continue to crime pounding, I guess you can. That would mean they've been pounding it for 2.5 years. But in the middle of that pounding, in September, the stock went from under $1 to almost $9. And that was just the beginning. And then for some reason, one of the gentlemen who owns a lot of stock in GTII and his compatriot decided to tell everyone, get out of that, come over to COSM. I don't know why. So the stock, which had been causing a squeeze for about a month and a half and stayed in the 4 to 6 range all day long, suddenly just collapsed to next to nothing, took all the pressure off the shorts. So that was pounding. That was a pounding, but that happened back in, and we did it to ourselves. But getting the pressure back up, getting the build up again has taken some time. I said it at that time. When a long distance runner has a heart attack, they don't get out of their hospital bed right away and run a marathon. So it's about 90 days, maybe a little longer, since everyone abandoned ship because Cosmo Health looked like a better deal. Maybe it was. I can't judge if Cosmo Health was a better deal. Some people must have made money. The GTII now, if you take more than just a last 5 minutes view from the end of last year to now, we've gone from around 40 cents up to almost 3 or 4 different times. But to go from 40 cents to $2 is 5x. It's hardly pounded. It's hardly pounded. But I'm not telling you that it's pleasant to see it at $1.82. I'm not telling you you shouldn't consider selling it. Because if it's disappointing you that much, actually it's $1.81 now, sorry. I didn't mean to mislead you. There's other stocks out there. It's 181 to 183. The volume's very little volume since the time I've been on. I just respectfully disagree with you. I don't think it's being pounded. In fact, I think just like when the tide pulls out or a tsunami comes in, the ocean pulls out slowly and it looks really peaceful and the water goes all the way back. Next thing you know, this huge wave comes in. I think the huge wave is coming in for the criminals. Donald Trump called for death and destruction. Yeah, well, I mean, I can't believe when he was president, he went in and he killed Gaddafi. He killed, tried to kill first time Jimmy. Are we? I don't know how to check if I got your message. Let me look. Time Jimmy. First time Jimmy. I bet you guys are missing Ham right now because, hey, there's Jeremy's post. There's Jeremy's post. Oh. Post. I like this guy, Elon Musk. Look for Jimmy. All right, I'll look for Jimmy. Giggity, pounding, giggity. I know what you mean. All right, let's look at... can you guys believe it? So the one thing Jeremy knows that you don't know, and I don't know, is the FOMO list and the OBO, I think it's called the OBO list. Anyway, it's those that object to their data being shared and those that don't mind. So he knows the short position here. Squeeze over 20 cents. Last trade was 19 cents. Well, 18.8. Giggity. That's a pounding to the shorts. I'm done buying today, Sam Haynes. Hope it goes up Monday. Oh, that's good. Juice worth the squeeze. This guy, Elon Musk, I'm dead. Another carrot for next week. Let me see. I was missing some of this. How do you feel about the future of the U.S. global influence and the U.S. dollar being replaced? Well, Lou, how I feel about it is this is happening very quickly. And it's a hell of a price to pay. It's a hell of a price to pay for being stylish. It's a hell of a price to pay for being stylish. But at least we got... It's all been worth it. There's no more tweets. I don't care if my television set costs more to buy. I don't care if my cars are going to cost more to buy. I don't care if my gasoline's going to cost more to buy. And I don't care if I do die. Going down to Florida to get some sand in my shoes. Well, I'm going down to Florida to get some sand in my shoes. It's the Orange Blossom Special. I don't open that door, Jennifer. I don't open that door. There's a couple reasons for it. It's got really sharp steps there, and it's bad for my dog. But I also just decided not to. Yeah, 18.2 to 18.8. Yeah. I mean, if you can allow, well, let me see actually. Maybe this doesn't update automatically. It's 20 cents I have, guys. Very interesting. This is slow. 18.5. So it's 19 on the bid, 20 cents on the ask. Nick, I don't think there's positive news on 1-800. I don't think there's bad news. I don't think there's bad news on 1-800. But it's clear to me that the audit didn't get done in time. Otherwise, we would have heard about it now. So I fully expect that we're going to hear that the auditors need some more time. It's not bad news. It just means a delay. The dividend, they put news out yesterday that the target record date is April 15th, but it's up to FINRA to approve that. And then they also emphasized there will be no reverse split. Did I understand correctly? Will Logic issue R10? Will Logic issue R10? Will Logic issue R10? Will Logic issue R10? I can't make sense out of that. Of Go Logic. I hadn't heard that, but let me look. Maybe there's news on that. I hear what you're saying now. My understanding is Logic intends to hold that, but it's entirely possible, now that you mention it, that once... Right now, what's happening with Logic is one company. Logic is going to be put into... It's going to be put into a SPAC. Logic is going to go into Aubrey SPAC, already publicly trading. Aubrey SPAC is going to let Logic continue to trade as a shell while Aubrey SPAC absorbs Data Logic trading for under the symbol of the Aubrey SPAC deal. So Data Logic is probably going to be the name, I don't know, but that portion is probably going to be worth $1.50 out of the gate. Will it trade there? I don't know. But that, you're going to get that. And then you get Logic as the shell. And Logic as the shell, so you have the Data Logic. Logic is the shell here. owns 4,500,000 shares of GoLogic, and Logic here, which is a shell, has already identified an acquisition, or the other way around, that company will acquire, it doesn't matter for you, it's the same difference, that's better than 50 cents a share, because they had already announced one that was worth 50 cents a share, basically, round numbers. So assuming that's better, maybe it's worth 75 cents, maybe it's worth $1 a share, but inside of there are the 4.5 million shares of GoLogic, and maybe those 4.5 million shares will be distributed to you as shareholders. It's quite possible, but I don't know about it. It's an interesting thought. Well, Lou, I'm not out of GTII yet, and I regret that I didn't trade it the way a lot of people have. But I think I don't know the order of priority. If I had a woman in my life, it would become clear. But I think my main goal, if it turns out the way I expect it to, is that I would either buy a home, but a house lived in by one just isn't a home when it's lived in by one, oh, one lonely one. But I think that's what I would do. I'd buy somewhere, and I think it'd be outside of the United States. Somewhere that, well, the problem is going outside of the United States is you've got to still know that you have some friends around if things go screwy. So my guess is I would go to London or Dubai or Abu Dhabi, something like that. But it might be Puerto Rico. If I went to South America as a gringo, I don't know. I don't speak Spanish. I don't know if I'd be safe, but because I don't know anyone there. The other possibility is Spain. I know some people there, or Italy. Anyway, that'd be one thing. But the point is to either pay off your mortgages, get out of debt, but have a place that you and your family are safe. And in my case, where I'm safe and people that I know can come be with me. That'd be one goal that I would do. The second thing is I'm doing it now, but I would accelerate my efforts to start an oil and gas company, an honest one, that cash flows obviously from the production of oil and gas. My theory is if oil and gas right now, oil's $75 a barrel and gas is $2 or $3 an MCF, whatever happens to the currency, right now, $70 a barrel, you could buy, I don't know what, you could buy a hamburger at a fancy restaurant in New York City, but more realistically, $75 would buy a load of firewood. I don't know how to do the comparison. But if you assume $75 buys a load of firewood, if the dollar collapses, whatever replaces it, people are going to still buy the oil and the gas. It'll be worth that load of firewood, to use that cockamamie analogy. So that's the second thing I do is invest in something I know about, like you have things you know about, that can create not so much cash flow, but it's almost, if you think in your head, it's like bartering, using whatever the currency is. You want to be creating something that will have demand in the next iteration of our life, regardless of what currency buys it. And then, yes, I would seek to buy hard assets. And I'm probably boring everybody, so but I may do videos on that if we get there. And I have a dream of, I'd love if everything turned to shite. I would love to be able to go buy either a brokerage firm or a small asset manager or an exchange or all of it and become an honest. I'd like to recreate an honest way of funding companies, making money for investors, not being greedy, but just building a I don't know, you guys would call it ecosystem, but basically building a fun financial firm. That would interest me too. But mainly, and mainly, I think you have to start thinking in terms of kind of being your own central bank, but without the debt. You have to, my opinion is central banks around the world, which are not government run, are acquiring everything. They're acquiring real assets everywhere. China's been doing it. China's been acquiring real assets. When they have enough, they'll start attacking the dollar. And my reaction is, I bet China has decided they've already bought all the gold they want to buy, and now they're ready to destroy the dollar. But without going into politics, for some reason, Victoria Nuland, Samantha Rice, Samantha Powers, Susan Rice, and whoever's advising this catatonic, I didn't pronounce that correctly, but this president, we all know that he's senile. We all know it, but somebody's operating behind him. And what's that movie with the guy that goes to all the parties? Anyway, whoever's running the country has decided, and particularly this I think Victoria Nuland is the instrument anyway of it, is decided just to send us headlong. And I think the scariest thing is Saudi Arabia has had enough of it. Saudi Arabia, when I used to go to the Middle East, because I'm American, people would ask me, and the first times I went, Bill Clinton was president, and there was a reverence for the United States. There was an awe. There was an awe of the United States. Then when I was going, when the boy president was president, they barely took notice anymore. It was more important what Russia, Germany, other powers, even France, were doing in the Middle East. The United States was an afterthought. I remember sitting at the top of that I forget that hotel with the sail, what it's called, that looks like a sail. We sat at the top, and I was talking to really high up guy from Jordan, and it was really sad to hear. Decisions were no longer made based on the United States. Well, we fast forward now, and what China has done in the Middle East is brokered a peace or a rapprochement between Iran and Saudi Arabia that we never were able to do. And I think what China offered is peace. We don't offer peace in the Middle East. We divide it up. And it's an open question whether we're just doing what Britain taught us how to do or we're doing it on ourselves. But we divide everyone. And we keep various factions going at each other. And I think that time's over. And so I think you have to get ready for oil not being priced in US dollars, which means you have to get ready for a time when US dollars are not printed out of thin air and accepted around the world as a dollar. I've used the term before, but Charles de Gaulle called it our exorbitant. But another way of looking at it is if you treat yourself as if you're a country, or the country is like one of us. The United States, when it drives up to a gas station in Virginia and it needs to fill up the tank, it just puts it on the credit card in dollars. Greece, and you need to fill up your tank. Well, you have to first work, earn drachma, well, whatever it is now, the euro, but you have to earn drachma and then convert it into dollars. You have to make sure that you have the cash to pay it. Well, in the United States, we just run up the credit card. We buy everything. We buy our military. We buy our... we can't even make medicine anymore here. And this started, someone pointed out, it started under Reagan, but man, did it accelerate under the Democratic hero, Bill Clinton. You guys don't remember. The sucking sound. The sound you hear, the big sucking sound. That's American jobs going down to Mexico and going to China. That's after NAFTA was signed. Well, George Bush couldn't get NAFTA passed. Bill Clinton did. So it's a long answer to your question, but I think the United States is in for a real comeuppance. But it's not all bad news. It's not all bad news, Lou. It's just we're no longer going to be the wealthiest nation on the planet. We're not going to be able to print money and buy things. We're going to have to earn our money. We're no longer going to be the premier military on the planet. Our aircraft carriers groups will operate at the permission of other countries around the world, but we won't be the premier military anymore. We won't be able to finance it. We spend $1 trillion a year. Who's going to lend us that money anymore if the dollar isn't number one? Remember, there's a demand for the dollar because it settles all trades. Well, now it's down to 65 or 70%, but it's still big. That's going to change. Now, I don't think it's going to change all at once, and that's the good part. I think, I don't know anyone around the world that wants to move to China or move to Russia or move to Iran, Africa. Maybe Brazil, but India, people dying to go to those various countries. Why? Because people still remember what we used to stand for. We used to stand for freedom of speech until Hillary lost her election. We used to stand for powerful free journalism until Hillary lost her election. We used to stand for individual rights, the right to gather, whether it's electronically or in person, until Hillary lost her election. And people looked up. People looked up to the fact that when we voted, our voting systems were sacrosanct. But Hillary lost her election. And she questioned that election. And she said that it was Russian bots infiltrating Facebook that somehow cost her this. So she demonized Trump as a big white male ogre that hates everyone. Well, you know, Trump, whether you like him or not, of communities in New York. And he's been generous to those communities. And he doesn't talk about race constantly. He treats people on their merits. And that's where we need to get to, is we're blind to all that stuff. But anyway, she also demonized Putin. Absolutely demonized Putin, because she lost. And the Democratic Party went along because the Clintons raised over $10 billion in Haiti. $10 billion. Nothing changed in Haiti. Where did that $10 billion go? The Clintons raised massive amounts of money while she was Secretary of State. And she had a server off campus. She was selling access. Billions of dollars were raised. And she was selling access to the future president of the United States. Well, I'm not trying to judge any of that. I'm sure it's all kosher because she's a good person. Trump's an odious person. She is generous and caring and kind and all that. But the result of it is she and the Democratic Party have demonized Putin and Russia. And we didn't need to. We did not need to. Russia is no longer the Soviet Union. In fact, Putin put churches back where Stalin ripped them all out. And if you listen carefully, Putin makes references to God. And a lot of my friends, my liberal friends, if I talk about God, the conversation stops. And, you know, by the way, I don't know how to talk about God. But I really think that we've decided to pick a fight for internal reasons here in the United States. We were completely wrong in the Middle East. And now we're going after Russia for some reason. Obama called Russia just a regional power. Well, I'll tell you what, that regional power has more oil than we do, more gold than we do. It has a highly educated population that, when they're not drinking, works very hard. It's a stoic population. It goes through thick and thin. It's been around for thousands of years, at least 2,000 or 1,500 anyway. I can't remember when Muscovy was founded. 800, 1,200, I can't remember. But they're hardworking, they're good people. Russians are good people. But we've decided to demonize them. And how do you have any normal conversations? Anyway, I don't care about the fight. I'm sure Hillary's right. She was cheated. And I'm sure Trump, when he denies this election, he was not cheated. I'm sure she's right. But practically, where it leaves the United States of America, we don't even talk to Russia. We don't even talk to Putin. Kissinger played Russia off of China, and he's 100 now. They're doing deals in rubles and yuan. China has our factories and our patents that frankly we shipped over there under Bill Clinton, but it kind of started under Reagan, and it accelerated. And it was all Wall Street doing it, by the way. You remember greed is good? All of that. It's all Wall Street for money, shipping it over to China. China's still a developing nation that we helped develop. But ask yourself, who's going to be the world's biggest economy when the dollar goes down by half or by 3/4? It's pretty obvious. So I think there's hope, though. I think there's a lot of hope. What I've just described is miserable. And that's why you have to be ready for it. It's like those tornadoes coming. You've got to have a place to be safe. Your house, your neighborhood. When the tornado comes, and I'm saying that respectfully, I pray that everyone is safe there. But the financial tornado comes and our lives change. You have to be ready to come out the other side of it after the tornado goes by, and you're independent. That's what I want for you guys. I want you to be independent. I don't want you to have to suck up to some warlord or some government power or bank. I want you to be independent. I want, just like in the old Western movies, you'll be one of those ranchers who has power because you're self-sufficient. That's what I'd like for each of you. And what I think the positives are is the United States have our Constitution. And we still have the red states, thank God. We still have the salt of the earth, the good people. We still have an honest working class. We still have most of America is terrific. People still want to come here. We have young people coming here. And I'll just finish with this. How many times in your life, when you get in a bad situation and it comes to, you're almost coming to blows, you tell the person on the other side of the table or the person, your neighbor down the street, you say to him, hey, it's a free country. I can do what I want. It's a free country. Remember that. America is, you know what the left doesn't realize. They're accusing, it's all Saul Alinsky. They're accusing Trump of being fascist. Fascism is the marriage of journalism, propaganda, censorship, controlling thought with government, and then government is married to business, banks, war machine, drug companies, big agriculture. It's almost as if God is teaching us, we judge Germany for being fascist. Look what they're doing in I won't go into it, but some very small right-wingers in the Middle East. I won't go into that. Just talk about in the United States. It's almost as if we're being taught that we too could be Orwellian. We too could be fascist. But I don't think that fascism is originating with Donald Trump. But it's a very slippery slope. When you decide, because you've been taught social justice warrior information, when you've been taught by feminism that you've been held back just horribly, when you've been taught that the power structure in the United States is not only a patriarchy, it's white men. It makes no sense on its face. Are you talking about the white men in Appalachia with one tooth? Are you talking about the white men that went and fought the wars and now live under bridges? Are you talking about those white men? Are you talking about white men that farm and are barely keeping their family on the farm? Are those the white men you're talking about? Or are you talking about a very select group, which includes women, by the way? White women. I don't know how white women get a pass. Anyway, I don't want to get into all the racial part of it. The hope is, though, that the United States can come out of this with its dream alive, and people will still want to be here. The dream of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people will never perish. And that all people, whether they're dark-skinned or light-skinned, whether they're male or female, or, a fluffy chocolate cake, all genders have the same equal rights. You wouldn't want to be a chocolate cake in the Middle East. You wouldn't want to be or in China. So I think there's hope on the other side, Lou. I know it's a long answer. I think there's hope on the other side. But when you make money here, try not to think of it as wealth. Try not to think of it as in dollars. Transfer that wealth, as long as it's valuable, into things that will give you independence, give you security, protect your family and friends after the hurricane goes by, after the love is gone. Let me just see how GTII closed. This is all slow. All right, GTII closed at $183, and it got pounded in the extended hours. It went down 0.0025 in the extended hours to $1.8275. So today was a pause for the cause. No alarm bells here on the stock. If they were going to win, they'd let the stock go to $5. Remember what COSM did? The shorts in COSM, they knew they were going to win. So they let the stock go to $24 because they knew they were going to win. They knew they could short it back down to 11 and then convince the CEO. And you don't know, and I'm sure he's a good guy, you don't know all these smiling faces. Wall Street is like a courthouse. If you get in trouble in a court with the law in another state, let's say, which I went through, I raised money for an oil and gas company, and it ended up having to declare bankruptcy, and I fought it with my own money for 3.5 years down in New Orleans. But what was eye-opening is that little courthouse with the judge and all the lawyers. When we started, there were 3 lawyers and 3 big guys on the other side of the table, me and the lawyer I brought in at the last minute. By the time we were done, the table was full of 30 lawyers. And they all knew each other. They're all feasting off this case. And the judge gets paid. That's what Wall Street's like. You don't know who your friends are. You don't know if the company that's bringing the money to COSM and talking is somehow working behind the scenes with Kurt Kramer. You don't know. What happened with COSM, the shorts let the stock go up. They let you buy into the stock, just like they let you buy into GME and AMC recently many times, because they know they can get you to give them more money. They know they can control it on the way down. Why don't they ever let that happen with GTII? The reason they don't let it happen with GTII is there's some trapped mother frackers, and they don't know how to get out of this position. It was the idiot trader, Kurt Kramer, absolute idiot, thief. I mean, he's good at thieving, but he's an idiot trader. And then Alpine took it over, and they seem to be idiot traders as well. And now they have all these criminals, as I've told you, chopping up the loot each day. But it'll end. It'll end. And the shares have to be bought back. If Gary Gensler ignores the rules for a decade, if Cox, who was appointed under a Republican, ignores the rules, it doesn't change the fact that every trade still exists. Every fail to deliver has to be bought back. And they're trying to get you to forget that fact. But the fact is, every single criminal share sold has to be bought back. What the religious is writing, right is doing. Where do I get my news? I get my news, Matt Kay. I used to read 5 or 6 newspapers a day, right up until Bernie Sanders ran against Hillary Clinton. And I gave the maximum that I could. I forget what that number is, 2,000, 2,500, to Bernie Sanders. And I followed it very closely. I also, when Barack Obama ran against Hillary Clinton, I donated, I don't know if I think it was the maximum with Barack Obama. And I watched what happened then. And I watched how the Democratic Party operated and the news operated. Since then, I no longer read the Baltimore Sun. It doesn't give me anything to read. I don't read the USA Today. It doesn't really have anything in it. I used to read the Washington Times. I don't really read that. It's so thin. I used to read the New York Post. I still do look at the New York Post. But I used to think it had a pretty good business section. The New York Times, before it was bought by the world's second wealthiest man, and I couldn't stand to read. I love reading facts, and I don't care if the editorial page is slanted one way or the other. But when the news I'm reading is not truthful, I don't read it. So I really don't read the New York Times. I used to read the LA Times. I really don't anymore. And someone asked me once, Matt, years ago, why do you live in D.C.? At Da Domenico's in Falls Church, wealthy men. Why do you live here, Bill? And I said, well, my dad lives here, and the best newspaper in the world is the Washington Post. And there's nothing I like better than getting up and getting my copy of the Washington Post. I can't read it anymore. It still has a great sports section, and a lot of the stuff in it is good. But the information in the Washington Post, now that it's owned by Jeff Bezos, whose biggest contract is with the CIA, I just can't trust it. So where do I get my news? I get it from the Daily Mail, which does not like Trump. That's in the UK. I would read the London Times, except it's behind a paywall. When I'm in London, I read it. The Guardian I used to read when I was in London every single day. I don't so much, but I do sometimes read the Guardian. The Evening Standard in London I would read. I always read the Financial Times. I don't really read that anymore now that it's been bought by a Japanese company. It's different, but I still like it. And I used to not read the Wall Street Journal when it was really right-wing. Now I enjoy reading the Wall Street Journal. I used to read Investors Daily. But now where I get my news is all different places on the internet, all different sites, conservative, middle of the road, and liberal. And my only requirement is that they're being truthful in their presentation. I don't care if it's something opposite of what I initially think. How do I learn otherwise? But I don't listen to Fox Noise. I do not listen to the Clinton News Network. I cannot stand watching MSNBC anymore. I used to admire Rachel Maddow, and now, for 35 grand an hour, I think it's just awful. I can't watch. I can't even watch Bill Maher anymore. He tries to be honest, but I can't watch him anymore. So there's a guy, Matt, who is as left as he can be. I used to watch the Young Turks, and I really liked him. And I thought Anna Kasparian looked much better before she got her nose job, but she got a nose job. And I admired them for speaking out. They supported Bernie Sanders, and I really admired them. But all of a sudden they changed, and now they're the war machine. They're the Democratic deep state. There was a guy on that show that used to dye his hair, and I wasn't sure I really liked him. He was very liberal. They were very liberal. And he is still liberal. He smokes pot. He's a comedian. And his name is Jimmy Dore, D-O-R-E. I listen to him. I get a lot of news from Jimmy Dore online. I listen to several financial podcasts every day that are both conservative and not. Some are liberal, some are not. I listen to real estate sites. I just try to gather as much information as I can from all sources. But I don't think there's any journalism anymore. And I like to go where I feel journalism is being accomplished. And I think it's at the grassroots level now. I think it's a sadness. So that's where I get my news. And no, I haven't seen what the right-wing Christians are doing. I haven't seen anything that they're doing. So if you're telling me I need to watch CNN to find out what the right-wing Christians are doing, maybe I will. But I think that's a lot of, a friend of mine said, there's a shortage in this country of white supremacists. And I thought, well, no, but I got his point. A lot of those ignorant, evil people have already died, and the generation that's 60 years old and younger, maybe 70 was the Vietnam War generation. They're almost 80 now. Those were the peaceniks. It's just a lot of it. Anyway, so Matt, what I'm pleading for is not so much that you agree with me and maybe you find my sources of information wanting. What I'm pleading for is that we stop destroying each other and we come together as Americans and we recognize that we're 98% the same. And the blue states and the red states, if we come together, we can get through this. Otherwise, we're going to break apart. So that's a little bit of my hyperbole, maybe, is to just pop all these illusions, and maybe we can get back to recognizing that each one of us can say the Pledge of Allegiance. Each one of us can say the, Lincoln's speech at Gettysburg, the Gettysburg Address. I don't know. Hey, Ace in the Hole. I don't mean to preach. I just went off. Hey, Barbell. I know, Matt. I appreciate that about you, by the way, Matt. And I listen to you, Matt. I absolutely listen to you, and I respect you. And I think you come to their judgments. Matt, I could be completely wrong, and I always admit that. I always admit that. Is that right? When did they put in under God? I think I remember that. They put in under God during the communist scare, didn't they? They did it, McCarthyism is when they put in under God. It's interesting. All right, Martin Smith gets us back to the topic. What happens if GTII squeezes when TD Ameritrade switches over to Charles Schwab on May 26th? It should be seamless. When they will have already moved the trading systems. But when TD Ameritrade is acquired by Schwab or however it's working, it's not going to any. It shouldn't have any effect. Eisenhower, yeah, I think it was McCarthyism. I don't know, Matt. I can't hide the fact that I'm one of those Neanderthals that believes in God. So I guess I'm susceptible to it's nice that it's under God. But I agree with you. I remember that. And I can almost remember the senator. It went through Congress. You're absolutely right. They didn't. E pluribus unum against the shorts. All won. Yeah, that's a good one. How about those Seahawks? Hey, Ace. How about those Seahawks? Did you see the game? All right, I missed all your questions. Let's just see how things closed. I'm interested in this CRTD action. Jeremy might have had a strategy letting people. What is Casey? What is my take on MMTLP now with no news deal by the end of the quarter? Well, I don't have any inside information, but I just have from talking to people on the space calls and things like that. And I did talk for an hour very kindly with John Berta the other night. He's a great man. And he's a oil guy, but I didn't learn anything other than maybe a frame of reference. But my reaction to what's going on with MMTLP is it's definitely going down the route where everyone's lawyered up. It's just lawyered up, and that was my least attractive path. I told John my strategy, which I've put out on videos, and I was heartened to hear that not only did he essentially agree with it, that some of the decision makers have been thinking along similar lines. So I think that's a positive. And if I get time, I had friends come into town. If I get time, I'm going to try to do a video. I didn't have time today or yesterday or Wednesday, but and I might not this weekend. It might, but we'll see. We'll see. But where I think MMTLP right now is going is lawyer hell. and Congress hell, and which is good. I'm not discouraging that, but I'm talking about how we make money. I think it's great that Congress is putting pressure on. I think the combination of Congress and lawyers on FINRA, and I fully expect that West Christian on MMTLP, remember they were hired by Dragonfly LLC or whatever it's called to go after the shorts in MMTLP. West Christian's strategy with GTII was get into court under the charges of spoofing and then subpoena everybody, or whatever the word is. I'm not a lawyer. I fully expect that's the next thing we're going to hear about MMTLP is what West Christian has done. So I also understand that it's possible that this capital raise with Roth Capital is possibly on hold until something is resolved with FINRA first. So I don't know how to call that Roth Capital side, and I don't have specific, but I wouldn't be surprised if Roth Capital raises money for NextBridge after FINRA decides something. With the pressures from Congress and lawyers, it's possible, and I'm hearing a push towards this, that FINRA will open up trading. I'm nervous about that. I can't hide it from you. Why? Because I don't think you can put Humpty Dumpty back on the wall. The short squeeze should have happened December 9th and December 12th. It didn't. And I don't think you can create the parameters for a short squeeze again unless it's built into the framework of how the trading is going to be if they reopen it. My main two concerns are, obviously it's going to be closing transactions only, which is fine to me. My main two concerns are, how do you protect from the criminals manipulating selling? Because if you do it with the computers as is, they can manipulate it. And they can probably day trade. You can't. They probably won't do just closing transactions. So it's the mechanics of that. Can they really hold the integrity of closing only? I don't know. The second thing is I'm worried about is if they open it for trading and they say you have to trade your shares, you must sell your shares, or they're worthless. Well, then the stock won't even trade at 50 cents. So I guess my concern is what is the rule book if it opens trading? But in MKC, in a long answer to you, I think pressure is building on the SEC and FINRA to do something. There's pressure to have it trade again. And for me, I'd just be careful what you wish for on that end. I want to put out my plea to all parties again in some organized way, because the obvious solution is just get around an internet conference table. It's going to cost money, but get it settled. Well, see, Al, yeah, they'll just plead the fifth. Al, they're trying to send counterfeit shares to AST. That's not good. anyway, that's a long answer. Well, that's right, Alan from Alameda. There's rumors that the trading would open extremely high, and it might have panicked FINRA. I don't know about the blue sheets, and that's why West Christian can get that information. But what I'm a little sympathetic to, I think FINRA might have stopped trading for more pedestrian reasons. And it just might have been the volume of phone calls from broker-dealers not knowing what to do. But it's possible that was the reason. I personally, Alan, I don't think if that was it, that they would have stopped trading. They would have said, hey, if it opens up that high, some got to win, some got to lose. So one person texted me, Jenny. She's terrific. What do I think about the lawsuit Hurry has against FINRA? And without going through it too much, I did review quite a few going back, but the basis of these jerks is that FINRA does not have the constitutional right to discipline Alpine Securities. I mean, these criminals are unbelievable. They take your money and they can buy attorneys to make arcane arguments, and then FINRA has to be very careful. They're all lawyers. There's no Patton or Truman or Napoleon or I don't know, some fighter in there. They're just all lawyers, so they go through the plotting process. But my reaction to that lawsuit by Hurry and Alpine against FINRA is that it's embarrassing, and it's embarrassing that it's gone on, I think, since 2019, and I think it's going to come to a head. Only without people looking at it could some idiocy like that lawsuit last so long. If Congress and journalists and we start looking at it, it's obvious that it's just Mickey Mouse. That's my opinion, Jenny. Ralph Fun, I think with MMTLP, I think you can only do basically two things. You can call your broker and say, look, I want my MTV, and see how realistic that is. You can also continue to contact Congress, journalists, FINRA. But I think, Ralph, the biggest thing you have to remember in this case, you're not alone. And it's not so much someone's helping you. It's just that there's big players, they want to help you, but there's big players whose interests are aligned with yours. All these big investors that now are in NextBridge also own massive amounts of MMTLP. And when they settle, And when I talked to John Berta, it was very clear to me. Obviously, anything can happen. I can't speak for other people, and lawyers can screw things up when it comes to settling. Well, you got to do this, you got to do that. But anyway, what I think is these big guys that own maybe 40-60% of the shares, they're going to strike a deal, and it's not going to be cheap, and it's not going to be a bad deal, or they're going to just fight it in the courts, and it's just going to get more and more expensive for the criminals. So my point is, I'm not sure there's much you can do, Ralph. Even reaching out to FINRA, useless organizations in terms of defending the individual investor. They're there to defend Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Ken Griffin. At least that's what their actions show. So I'm just not sure that's going to do it. But what's going to do it is these guys and all of the MMTLP 65,000. It's amazing. The pressure is going to build and a resolution is going to come, and you're not going to be left with nothing. In fact, I think what you're going to get is going to more than pay for all the pain and suffering. You had a company that was publicly traded go into a private company. And one of the negatives of private company is there's no liquidity. Well, with liquidity like the over-the-counter market gives, who the hell needs liquidity? You know, what the market makers give to you and the criminals give to you in the name of liquidity is death by 1,000 cuts. It might turn out that we're better off duke it out, and they're not gonna do a deal like Cosmo did or other companies. That's the only one. I'm not trying to pick on that one per se. It's the only company I can think. AMC, GME. I just don't know what happened there, but they're not going to do a deal that only benefits them. Whatever deal they strike, I can almost guarantee you, they're going to say, well, that deal, good for us, it's good for every shareholder, every single shareholder. Treat everyone the same. So I think you're going to be all right, Ralph. Well, the 10-year bond is going up. Are you talking about the price, not the yield, I assume? And the repo is going back to 2. Well, Chris, the scariest thing is going on now. We're losing our perception of strength around the world. There's no question there's an attack on the dollar. I'm not even sure our military is being taken very seriously anymore. And in light of that, we're also, or along with that, we're having rapid inflation. We have a clueless president, absolutely clueless, although I still get letters saying he's beloved. We have no direction. No way home. We're like a rolling stone. So, the Fed has I'm trying to answer your question. The Fed has an impossible task. They're trying to fight inflation. They're trying to keep the dollar reasonably strong so that it's trusted. And they're trying to keep the bond market from imploding. So whilst they're raising interest rates to show they're fighting inflation, I believe, I can't prove it, but I believe they're in there buying the 10-year bond. So they're, it's like my mother used to drive the car. One foot on the gas pedal, one foot on the brake. And then they're doing both. I just think probably they should just pick the one thing they want to do. It's really scary, and it has implications for all of us. If the Fed loses control of the bond market is like a compared to a domestic pig. The equity market is so small compared to the bond markets. And if the bond markets give up the ghost, banks will go down. You won't be able to go to your ATM, which, that's one thing you should do is have some cash at home. I don't know. I really support whatever Powell is doing. I hope he succeeds at it, but it's funny. I made the observation during the COVID lockdown. Been talking about, I won't bore you with all of them, but one of the guys, Matt Simmons, I've told you about, he was a Republican investment banker. He wrote the book Twilight in the Desert, and I met him, spoke with him on the phone. I just thought the world of him. And he emphasized that one way to handle with the coming peak oil, it doesn't, the thing I'm saying, you don't have to agree with peak oil, but that's the commonality that he and I had. He told me and told others that the way to deal with it is to telecommute, work from home. And I pointed out during COVID to friends that would still talk to me that it sped everything up. This COVID and the internet sped everything up. Almost overnight, everybody's working from home. What would have been met with enormous resistance, overnight, it happened. And there's other trends, but that's one example. So what's going on right now in the bond market and around the world, so many different threads and things changing that anyone I would talk to 15 years ago, 10 years ago, would say, oh, that's not going to happen, or it'll never happen overnight. Those things. It's all happening at once. So it's really frightening. And it does have an impact. My guess is, as long as China wants a stable financial system, China will help the Fed maintain stability in the bond market. I don't think China's ready to have financial Armageddon, but we'll see. Well, Big Al, FINRA doesn't have the blue sheets. The blue sheets, I mean, I may be wrong, and I'm sure many of you are much smarter than I am. Blue sheets is something each company keeps track of. And so FINRA has to ask each broker-dealer for those trades. I'm not sure they have. Maybe they have. I'm not sure they have. Wes Christian has been hired by Dragonfly LLC to go after this data. It's going to come. First it's spoofing, and then it's the rest of it. And we'll get to time and sales. But time and sales are, I guess, kept in an omnibus computer, but it's really the responsibility internally of each broker-dealer, the opposite of the trades. It may be that these time and sales blue sheets are kept in the computers at FINRA, but I've asked that question, and I really don't know the answer that FINRA has all that data at its fingertips without going to each of 105 broker dealers, and I'm not sure they've done it. Well, that's true. It let us breathe cleaner air, Mexican silverback, but it absolutely it did, and it may have given the world a chance to recover from some of our. But I think we're. Well, Spiny, China needs America to buy its crap. I just don't know if that's true anymore. If you set up populations who want to live like we do or Europeans do, or even like Mexicans do, or like Brazilians do, in Southeast Asia, in India, in the Middle East, in Africa. In other words, you start having middle classes. In China, there's a middle class. Our population is 300 million people. Theirs is 1.2, 1.3 billion. India's now the most populous nation in the world. Well, if you have these burgeoning middle classes there, they need clothing, they need TVs, they need furniture, they need crap. And so, no, I'm less sanguine about that. I'm not sure that America is going to be the world's great consumer, allowing China's factories to keep producing. I think China may have some problems. It's getting as expensive as Japan, maybe. It's approaching it. And so places like India and Malaysia and Vietnam can produce things more cheaply. Yeah, they do have it all, Big Al? All right, so I'm wrong. So if FINRA has it all, I don't know. I would think, Big Al, that if they're going to open up trading, and then they tell Merrill Lynch, hey, Merrill Lynch, TD Ameritrade is really in deep doo-doo. I don't know. That data, I'm not sure it should be made public if you're going to open trading. Maybe afterward. If you're going the lawsuit route, sure, it's got to be put out. Of course, they're stonewalling, but Big Al, everyone is stepping carefully under advice of attorneys. And I'll tell you, you know more about this than most, I would say almost all FINRA, all Congress, all SEC, except for maybe Gary Gensler. I'm sure he knows about it. So there's a lot of learning, and the lawyers don't know anything about it. Lawyers, like the one lawyer asks asinine question like, well, we first have to determine what caused the stock price to be so low. Big Al, you think they know how many shares are out there? You think so, Big Al? Without going to each brokerage firm? I'm trying to think that through. If they are the central repository of all trades, and they do the data every day of the failed to delivers, I suppose you're right. They may have all the data in the macro sense, but you're saying they might have it per 105 broker dealers. I have to think about that, Big Al, because I'm sensing that you might be right, and I more than that, I'm thinking you are 100% right. Yeah, the Jack Wolf, the MMT people are fighters. Hey Tom, on TDA, I wouldn't be worried. The merger will be seamless, and you'll be able to trade your stock if there's trading as the two companies merge. That was the question I answered. I don't know if that's the question you were asking. Frank Anastasio, I personally think FINRA lent our money, and they're well, Frank, I've been thinking about that. In fact, I thought about it last night, and just to show, trying to think outside of our, my rigid thinking. I started wondering, is FINRA actually organizing a slow settling of this while we're all talking? Behind the scenes, is FINRA kind of managing some sort of back of the curtain crossing of shares to settle this up? I don't know, but I had that thought last night. And Big Al saying they have all the information. Well, if you have all the information, why open a market? Just say, TD Ameritrade, you're short 50 million shares, and over here Merrill Lynch actually is long 25. Why don't you call them up? See what you can work out. I don't know. Well, that's it. James Verduccio, in what James says is the naked shorts leave the country and wait for the dust to settle. That's absolutely right. I think, I don't know about the specifics, but there's no question they didn't know that they were going to run into the MMTLP army. And in GTII's case, they didn't know they were going to run into Ham. And now in CRTD, Jeremy and the other fighters, the other CEOs out there fighting, they didn't realize that people were going to educate themselves. They were going to stand in against them. But you're right. I think the shorts count on the energy to dissipate, and then they can come back and continue to do it. So did the crypto D do? I don't know that one. Well, M. Casey, in the case of West Christian, if you're about to file a lawsuit, you're going to keep your mouth shut. You're not going to go on TV. And West Christian is filing a lot of lawsuits, so it's not a surprise to me. Once they're filed and they're accepted, he can start talking about them. And that's my opinion. I'm not a lawyer. In terms of John Berta, I think he was on a space call the other night. And well, that's right, Big Al. I think the banks control a lot of this, and you mess with them. You're absolutely right. When I studied economics and government, one thing stuck in my head. I never have gotten it out of my head. Is that the big so-called American corporations? Most of them are international corporations, and they operate outside. They're not really American. Let me see. I missed some here. Yeah, I bet Avid's pumped because I think the chart looks great. It might be they have to buy we have to buy their crap. We have no direction with no way home, like a rolling stone. CB. What do you think, David Suchamel? I don't know how to Suchamel. What if Goldman? Let me see this. It's spun out, David. Yeah, that's it, David. That's my concern. David, you are pretty perceptive about what's going on. I think China's been working with the banking system, suppressing gold until they're ready, and that scares me. Um, hey, Skydog. But remember, America, United States of America, we're still a vibrant, good country. We have a lot of highly intelligent people, hard workers. We do speak out, as Matt showed. We can question each other. So we still, and we have a lot of resources. We have infrastructure. It's dated. It's tired. Um, but, the birds will sing. The air will be alive with laughter and joy and children's playing, and we're going to be just fine. It's just getting through that panic period while everyone loses their shit. Gerald Celente has an expression. He says, when people lose everything, they lose it. When people lose everything, they lose it. And that's the thing he used to say. J.P. Morgan, I think, is possibly why some of this is going on. Jamie Dimon is obviously a well-respected banker, but when he acquired J.P. Morgan, or I guess he went there, Blythe, is her last name Masterson? Blythe. Is it possible her last name is Masterson? Anyway, J.P. Morgan is a notorious rigger of financial markets, and it's quite possible they're in a lot of trouble. And that might be why some of the policies have been designed for assets to flow in their direction. But I would guess of all the banks out there, the big ones, I would guess JP Morgan is the best position to benefit in a crisis. Goldman might be, Morgan Stanley might be, but I would guess that JP Morgan is the best position. Currency Wars is an interesting book written in 12 about China, Russia, and other countries. Yeah, I might have read that book. I forget who wrote it, but I'm gonna write it down and order it. I may have read that book. I read a lot of books, and it all starts blurring in your head. But yeah, he did put out a lot of quid. Yeah, it's amazing. Very confused about SBS background. Well, I think he was, and how do we know that the Kramers aren't either? But I think he was a money launderer. And I think, I don't know. There certainly was, and that's where Gensler's probably right. There's certainly a bubble aspect to a lot of these coins and these online exchanges. But what's this one? Let me see. Alan from Peter Zehan's The End of the World is Just the Beginning. Postulate that demographic shift in China, Russia has led them to be more aggressive while they still... Well, I'm going to write that down because, Alan, that's a subject that is really going to be something over the next 10 to 30 years. I don't know if it was Mark Farber or Jimmy Rogers, but I think it was. Well, I really can't remember. If I had to pick one, I'd say it was Mark Farber, but he has an argument along the similar lines. Japan has an aging crisis and a declining population. China, believe it or not, has a declining population. Europe, declining population. And you know, by declining, it may just start out as declining population growth, and then it turns over. The United States does. And maybe is they're trying to increase our population. I don't know, but the United States has an aging and then declining population. The point that the guy I listened to made is that the economies where there's young people with a vibrant future economies is where to invest. That's parts of the Middle East. That's the parts of the west coast of Africa. It's Southeast Asia. And I feel like I'm leaving one other one out. But the point is that the future of economic growth, and maybe the GDP of the world is much smaller, but it's a real issue in the United States. Our birth rate is really low. I always throw a bone to the opposing side like Zuckerberg to make it look legit. Well, oh, absolutely, cross and bones. Logic not only did good, it was amazing. The only reason the stock didn't just take off, and I didn't know about it, I don't think anybody knew, but there was a guy that worked for the company, and he had something like 177,000 restricted shares, and his restriction came off last week or thereabouts. And he's been selling it all. He's just getting out. So once that selling is over with, and it might already be done. Yeah, I read Currency Wars by Jim Rickards. I read all 4 or 5 of James Rickards' books. So I have read that. But it once you get some of those ideas in your head, it's a little bit frightening. Yeah, we might have a large millennial, but I think we're also let's see what time it is, 5:24. Litigation financing and to explode, yeah. All right. I might end it. Hey, Jennifer, what? Did I do something wrong, Jennifer? 7 p.m. Yeah, that means I'm going to have to end here in the next few minutes so I can walk my dog. But I can come on with Busy. Just tell him I might be a little bit late. Or maybe I can do it while I'm walking. Anyway, yeah. I'll do my best, Jennifer. I'll do my best, which is all I can do. But my GTC orders on GTII have all expired. Can you guys imagine how long we've been in this. Oh, God. It's 2.25 years. All right, guys. You need me after all of my diatribes? Big Al. Oh, Lord. All right. I'll do my best. I'll do my best. But let me call it quits just so I can walk him and go. This is a new obligation, and I thank everybody. We'll talk later. Cheers. Cheers. Peace, love, and happiness.